human psychology, human relations, among others. So in today's episode, we will be focusing on the topic of alone together and how technology changes human connection. So I'm honored to have my guest, Dr. Cornelia Walther, today. So she's a senior fellow at the Wharton School, the University of Pennsylvania, humanitarian expert, former UNICEF spokesperson, and a thought leader in social dynamics, contributing to insightful articles in various leading publications. So she has decades of experience in human behavior and how technology is impacting human behavior, and I'm sure she will have a lot of insights to share with us today. So welcome, Dr. Walter. Really honored to have you with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Walter, I wanted to start off with the core premise that are we truly connected or are we alone together? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of the central illustrations of the fact how complex today's reality is, because human beings are just so complex, and there is no real answer to that, because there is no black or white, right or wrong, alone or together, because right now we're in this ambiguous situation where we seem to be ever more connected, as you said in your introduction, and at the same time we feel that there's this emotional vacuum where we're constantly on and yet we're always off. And in a way, what has happened over the past 3 years, where AI has more and more saturated our cognitive landscape, it seems that our AI-powered bots are becoming this emotional junk food that we're gobbling down, yet that is leaving us ever more empty.
That's a very nice word that you use, right? So, junk, junk food, it's almost equal to junk food. We tend to interact more with bots these days than we are having human interactions. It's unfortunately, and I think with social media that's come in, so billions across the world are connected, and yet you're feeling so lonely about it. So on that specific aspect, so how is the shift from face-to-face conversations that we used to have, or we continue to have as part of the human relationships, to online transactions actually impacted the depth and authenticity of these human relationships? I know pre-pandemic, at least we were a lot more having in-person conversations and in-person meetings, but I think the pandemic moved us to Zoom calls and texts and chats. And post that, I think that's kind of accelerated more. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, again, there is no either or, right or wrong, because imagine you and I, we have this conversation thanks to technology. Now, if
Yeah.
there was no Zoom, then we would probably not have this conversation. So in that sense, I think it's fantastic that we have it. But then on the other hand, I think we should not consider it as a permanent replacement. And as much as possible, and I've been trying to convey this also in the coaching forum where I've been speaking recently, it should not be seen as, oh, AI is the quick fix for everything that was before done with human relations. AI can come as an ally. AI can be harnessed in complementarity just to have the continuity. But it should not be seen as, well, either we have the human, which is starting to feel sometimes clunky, cumbersome, and logistically challenging, or we have the AI, we have the technology, we have everything that is technologically facilitated. But the human being is complicated, and maybe we should just configure our technological landscape just as convoluted as we are.
So I think striking a balance would be important for us. While, like you rightly said, technology is also helping us to connect. So you're in the US, I'm here, and it's helped us to connect and have this conversation. But how do we balance this out? How do we use it for our advantage more than it taking advantage of us? I happened to read an article that you recently wrote on Forbes, so where you talk about the A framework to kind of manage mental health. Because what's happened is studies show that with a lot of the social media usage, it's also leading to anxiety and depression among a lot of human beings. So would love you to talk a bit about the A-framed approach that you've spoken about in the Forbes article, and how do you think it can help solve this issue?
Yeah, thank you. The A-frame is something which I also described in my recent book. It's looking very much at how can we reframe our own mindset to take a more deliberate approach to shaping our relationship with AI and with our technology overall, which is first step is awareness of who we are, where we stand in our relationship with AI, appreciation of us as human beings, and appreciation of the tools that we have at our disposition, acceptance of the limitations of both, and finally, accountability. Because we might not like to face it, but whatever outcomes come from our artificial tools, we still remain accountable, no
Yeah,
matter what it is, but it's our responsibility. What we put in comes out.
yeah. And
And
on that specific aspect, with recently in the US, the decision to kind of take away the diversity perspective into consideration. So, what do you think? How would that impact the entire AI landscape now?
so something, and I'm going to broaden my answer a little bit beyond this aspect of AI being not fully representative
Yeah.
to link to what I call the ABCD of silent AI issues, which is agency decay, the erosion of bonds, social connections, the aspect of climate change, which
Hmm.
is this element of the emotional footprint that
Hmm.
AI has, that also is
Yes.
very little talked about. And finally, this element of divided society.
Yeah.
Because, and this is coming to your question, not everybody is using AI, and it's important to remember that we're discussing at a very high luxury level here, and that there are a couple of billion people out in the world who not only do not use AI, but they are struggling to have electricity, clean water, food, and social services. So
Yeah.
that is also something that keep in mind when we feel that AI is increasingly everywhere. Well, actually, we are a very tiny fraction of the
Yes.
world's population that is using AI, an even tinier fraction that is designing and training AI, and also the data that our AI is trained on is not representative.
Not
It's
represented.
only a small fraction of the world.
Yes, that's so rightly said. I think that entire holistic picture is missing. And in fact, a large, like you rightly pointed out, we are just a small fraction, and a larger population is what is still even unaware that there is something like this which is going on, and which is probably going to define or redefine their lives in the coming years, in the coming decades. So that's very true. So, how do you see the technology has reshaped the social norms? Like, probably, how do we express our empathy or how we maintain our friendships? So, are we adapting to these digital changes in a healthier way, or there is a time for us to now pause and relook at how we are approaching this?
I think in the best case scenario, we could consider the current technology wave that is swapping over society as a radical invitation to make a 180-degree turn and face our own humanity and look at all those elements that we like to sweep under the carpet because we find them uncomfortable, which starts and which includes soft aspects such as emotional intelligence, such as compassion, such as interpersonal generosity, like all those elements that make life in society actually livable
Hmm.
and even more so enjoyable, that lead to quality of life, but that is intangible. But seeing how the tendency and the trends currently go with increasing polarization, it feels much more that we're very straightforward repeating the mistakes that were made with the early era of social media. So I'm not sure if we human beings are very keen on learning from the mistakes of the past.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we tend to repeat the same thing and not learn from what has happened in the past. That's so true.
There's this beautiful saying of Einstein, doing more of the same and expecting a different outcome is insanity. But
So true. That's so true. So we spoke about the AI chatbots when we started off, right? So with AI becoming more involved in the communication that we have, so be it the chatbots or virtual assistants or even dating apps for that matter, how do you see it influencing the human connection in the years to come?
there are different ways in which this could go, right? On the positive side of things, one could consider that, well, maybe there will be, if not a cure to loneliness, at least there will be some sort of an alleviation for those who right now have either the AI power tool or nothing at all, and where
Yeah.
studies have clearly found that the bots have led to an increase of the subjective well-being.
Okay. Okay.
Then, on the other hand, what I see as a very likely scenario as well, and that comes back to what we said at the beginning with the emotional junk food, there
Yeah.
is a very strong risk that increasingly we take the path of least resistance, which is an AI-powered bot that is always friendly, always
Yes.
patient, always available, and in a couple of years might be embodied in a beautifully looking, charming robot. So if you can have it all without the quirky, cumbersome humanness that just makes us who we are,
Yeah.
it's very hard to be overly optimistic. Although there is a third path where we might just come to the point where we feel something is missing and where there is just this intangible something that is not going to pass anymore.
Yeah, I remember, there was this movie also which had come in, and I think that's where the entire aspects which you spoke about is put into a robot itself, and the robot is the partner. And one, it kind of leads you to an echo chamber where it's only giving you what you want to listen and being like you want it to behave. So that in itself is again another challenge. So that when you're actually encountering with a human being and they don't agree with what you're saying or your way of life, how do you then start reacting with humans? Because you're used to interacting with these robots, which are, completely for you and there to please you. And then humans have a different perspective. So do you see that leading to more conflicts in the coming future, more human conflicts, because there's a human and machine interaction, which is very cordial, and then there is a human and human relationship, which is total contrast. So do you see it leading to more conflicts, more stress?
Again, I think there are two ways to hypothesize around this. On the negative side of things, you could say, well, my AI bot is always friendly, it's always patient, so why is my human colleague not that way?
Yeah,
I'm getting upset with my
yeah,
human colleague, and I'm more and more referring to my AI bot.
yeah,
But then is another potential that I'm actually going to learn and that I'm actually going to acquire a pattern of, well, my AI bot is always friendly and polite. So actually, I'm getting used to this kind of interaction and I'm having the same kind of conversational style in my interaction with other human beings, which is coming back to something that was also found that but it's actually coloring our own mindset, how we interact with others. So if I teach myself to be friendly and polite with my chatbot, then maybe I can keep that in my interaction with others.
I think that's a nice way of looking at it. And I hope we have more people leaning towards that, which will obviously make the world a better place to live in, because then your people are becoming more friendly, more empathetic, more polite in their conversations. And obviously that will improve the relationships as well. So on a closing note, my last question would be for those who are actually struggling to feel truly connected in this digital age, what practical steps or mindset shifts that you would recommend for them to have those meaningful relationships with humans while still being connected in the digital world?
I think there are four aspects that I would maybe put forward, and that is attitude, approach, ability, and ambition. On the attitude, we already spoke about, that's basically the A-framed mindset. The approach is the double alignment, and which is the alignment between our aspirations and actions.
Yeah.
And then the alignment between our aspirations and our algorithms.
Mm.
But the offline piece needs to happen first, and then the online piece can happen. It's not the other way around. And that's what's
Mm.
falling between the cracks in the hype around the alignment problem. The ability comes back to what I call double literacy. or
Mm,
this whole need to start reconfiguring the education curricula to
mm,
harness hybrid intelligence. So,
mm,
on the one hand, a holistic understanding of brain and body, self, and society. And on the other hand, algorithmic literacy. Not just what is the latest tool, but also why does it work the way it does. And finally, the ambition, this aspect of it's not just about more efficiency and effectiveness, but it is about making AI a tool that brings out the best in and for people and planet.
I think you nicely summed it up there. So I think AI should be an enabler for us as a, as humankind to become better selves in the coming years. Technology definitely is a boon and a bane. So it is up to us on how we are leveraging it to better ourselves and, with better regulations and better, ethical frameworks which come in place. Hopefully, AI will become an integral part of our lives and blur the boundaries between human and machine in the coming years. So thank you once again, Dr. Walter. It was lovely talking to you, and thank you for sharing these perspectives with us.
My very big pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.